Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessie, and I'm one of the educators here at Bywater Solutions. I just have 2 o'clock here Eastern Time, so why don't we go ahead and get started. I will be walking through the technical services upgrade webinar here, and we'll go through the upgrade schedule, and then we will talk a little bit about some of the release notes where you can find some of our new videos, and then we'll jump right into our enhancements. So first, I'd like to say we have Kelly. She's one of our other educators. She's online here. She will be monitoring the Q&A. So if you have a question at any time, please use that Q&A box. You'll see that on the bottom of your screen in the black horizontal row on the bottom. The reason we suggest you use that Q&A is you will be able to see the questions and the answers that people ask. If you use the chat box, you won't be able to see those, so please use the Q&A. We will answer those questions as we go along, and then I'll also have some time at the end where you'll be able to ask some questions. We anticipate this should take about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we'll leave 15 minutes at the end again for Q&A. So let's get started right away here with some of our upgrade notes. So we are in the third week here of our upgrade webinars. We have 3 more left this week. So for those of you who weren't able to attend last week, we do have a few more coming up. November 2nd will be the circulation and patrons. Of course, today we're doing our technical services. Yesterday was administration, and then our OPAC and public user services will be November 1st. All of these webinars are made available on demand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this URL, and I am going to put this in the chat box for everyone. This is a link again to the webinar schedule. If you notice down here at the end, we will be having some town hall sessions. Again, we'll have one probably here towards the end of November, and then another one in mid-December where you'll have the opportunity to come on, and once your site has been upgraded, you'll be able to ask us questions, things that you've noticed, anything that's changed. We're also going to have a third town hall session that's been added in, and that's going to be dedicated just to Elasticsearch. We've had quite a few people ask about Elasticsearch and when that integration will take place with Koha. So Nick Clemens, who is one of our lead developers here at Koha, he and Bywater Solutions, he will be on that session and talking a little bit about Elasticsearch, and he'll even be showing some of the sandboxes where you can go on and actually see how Elastic works. Okay, so now that we've shown you the remaining of our upgrade webinar schedules, let's talk a little bit about where you can find some of the upgrade notes. I'm going to share this next link with you. Again, this is a link to all of our upgrade notes, including any type of blog posts, videos, as well as recorded webinar sessions. So all of our sessions from the last 2 weeks, which include our 1-hour overview, and then each one of our sessions that were module specific, those are already up on the website. You can click on any one of these, and this will take you out to our YouTube channel with those recorded webinars. Life happens. You may have come into one of these and started watching one and the phone rang or somebody came to the front desk. So please feel free, go back and watch these at any time on demand. We've also been keeping all of the Q&A from all of our upgrade webinars, and you'll see that link here too. This, of course, is going to take us out where you can go back and any question that you have asked during our last sessions, we have put up here, again, with links out to the bug or information that is available either within our site or within the wiki. So please come and check that information out. If you were on an upgrade webinar and somebody asked a question, again, you'll be able to go back and see that information. The final thing I'll want to point out, of course, is, again, all of the release notes. This will have a breakdown of all of the notes by module. At the end, of course, you will find any developments from our partners. We just had one this past release, and that was from Arcadia Public Library. And then, of course, a complete list of all of our system preferences. Now, for those of you who love the manual as much as I do, you'll notice a change in the manual as well. So at the top of our upgrade notes page, there is a new link that goes right out to the Koha Community Manual. You'll notice it's just a little different. You do have the availability to search right within the first page here, and that will search all of the sections of the manual and bring you back your results. So for example, I just did a quick search for renewal. If I select administration, that's going to take me right into that particular section. Now you'll notice there's still a table of contents over here on the left-hand side. So please check that out. Of course, there's also a direct link to the Koha Community release notes, of course, where you can come in. Brendan Gallagher, who is our owner here at Bywater Solutions, you'll notice that he was the last release manager for 1705. So this is actually a complete list of every enhancement. One thing I always find fascinating, and I love for people to look at this, is if you go down to the bottom, you'll be able to see all of the release team participants. So you can see everybody who was in the release team, the quality assurance team. If you yourself tested any bugs, you'll also be listed in here too. So I know there's quite a few of you that help out and go into Bugzilla and the sandboxes and test things. And it's just nice to see everybody who's been active in the community listed here. Okay, so before we jump right into technical services, the last thing we'll, of course, talk about is that upgrade schedule. Our first upgrades will be starting actually in 2 days on November 2nd. So again, upgrades to 1705 will begin on November 2nd, and they will continue throughout the month. Okay, all upgrades will start after 8 p.m. their local time, and we will populate a message onto your staff client. On your staff client, you'll see a message right over here on the left-hand side, and it will tell you when your upgrade is, and it will come out a week prior. There'll be a nice red box around there, so you'll be able to know right away when your upgrade will happen. The last thing we always like to say is just a reminder, please remember to clear out all of your browser's cache on the computers that do use Koha. That's just a quick troubleshooting for the morning after you come in and your upgrade was the night before. So just a reminder, just remember to clear your cache. And of course, if you forget, just shoot us a ticket or an email or call us or jump on IRC, and we'll absolutely be able to walk you through it. Okay, so let's get started with our technical services updates. So we're going to start in acquisitions, and the first one that I'm going to show you is probably the largest enhancement for the acquisitions module, and this is a development that will grab item information from order files. So what this does is this creates a new system preference in the acquisitions module that will grab item information from order files. This way, you can create item data at the record level. So let's start by looking at acquisitions. So we'll talk about our acquisitions module first. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to open a second tab in administration, and we're going to look at that new system preference. So what we're going to do is we're going to come right into our global system preferences, and over here we have our acquisitions tab. Now the first thing we're going to take a look at is our mark item fields to order. Now, in prior releases of Koha, we had the mark fields to order. That would allow us to grab our price, our quantity, and or our budget code. Well, now with this new development, we have the availability to grab our mark item fields to order. This will allow us to use several fields that would create the item. Now, This mapping value allows us to set up 975 fields and subfields such as price, quantity, discount, not for loan status, item type, public or non-public note, home branch or holding branch. This is a great enhancement for those of you who may have multiple branches or be part, of course, of a multi-branch system, where you can now specify in those order records which particular branch books or items will be sent to. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create the items fields to order in Koha. We have a great blog post on this, which I'll pull up very quickly. It is called, let's grab this just real quick. Automatically generate item information. So for those of you who may be setting this up, again, I'm going to put that in the chat box. There's a video as well as step-by-step instructions. So again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to put in those 975 fields. And you can use the subfields that coordinate with your 952 fields. So for example, my home branch is going to be my 975 subfield A. My holding branch will be my 975 subfield B. My item type and my non-public note you'll see in there, my 975 Y and X, and so on. Once you have those created in there, you can add your quantity, your budget code, and your price. So for those of you who were using the previous one, you will be able to do that and add those in. Now, once you come in here, you create your mark item fields to order, you save your acquisitions preferences. The next thing you're going to want to do is go to your vendors' websites. Some of our libraries use, let's say, Baker and Taylor, Ingram, Midwest Tapes, Brodart, YBP or Gobi. The next step you'll want to do is you'll want to log into one of your vendors' websites. Now, Baker and Taylor has graciously given us access to Title Source 360, so we can show what this would look like. So here's an example. Again, this is Baker and Taylor. I know for Ingram or Midwest Tapes or Brodart, you would do the same thing. You would go in and you would create either your mark template. I know everyone refers to it as something different, but essentially we're setting up your grid rules or your mark profiles so the vendor knows how to identify these fields when you're downloading your mark records and sending them over to Koha. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure you identify that the mark tag, again, this is just an example for Baker and Taylor, where you identify those 975 fields, and then you come in here and then you create, I just added a few in here for example. Let's say our subfield 7, which is my not for loan, I'm giving it a -1 value, which is ordered. Of course, subfield 8, I'm going to give it my collection, subfield Y, item type. Again, you can go in, select and add as many rules. That way, you can apply your either profile or grid or template to your orders that identify these 975 fields. That way, when you bring them into Koha, you stage those mark records for import, and then you attach them to your basket. You'll be able to they'll be able to recognize those 975 fields. Again, this is a great enhancement, which now allows us to essentially identify item level order information within the system. If you need any help setting those up, again, there's great step-by-step instructions here, both a video along with instructions on our website, which will walk you through setting it up. We even have examples on here that you can copy and paste within the system to add them in. So we have a question from Marcy, and she's asked, we've been using this feature as a plugin, but with the 946 tag, will I have to have our vendors update the tag they are using? Marcy, you can use the 946 tags in the mark item fields to order if you want to continue using those 946. When the development was created, the developers use the 975 fields as an example. So those are the fields that we've been using. If you want to switch to the 975 fields to keep it uniformed, you can absolutely do that. But the main purpose is to know that make sure those fields match what you have in your vendor's profile, and then make sure it matches what you have in the Koha system preference for acquisitions for those mark item fields to order, because this is what Koha will use to map those fields coming from your vendor records. So you'll want to make sure they match. If they're coming out as 946 and you have them in here as 975, Koha won't be able to recognize them. So just make sure that they match on both the vendor side and the Koha side. That way, when you stage those mark records for import and you bring them into the system, you'll be able to identify those. Okay. All right, so now that we've talked about one of our pretty large enhancements for acquisitions, let's move in to some of our other enhancements that you'll notice in the acquisitions module. So the next enhancement provides the functionality to hide inactive vendors from the vendor search. In Koha, vendors currently can't be deleted, but what this patch does is it will allow you to mark any of the vendors inactive, which you could before, but this will now hide them from the vendor search. So now when I come over here and let's say I just do a generic search, I want to look at all of my vendors in the system. This will show me everyone that I have. Now you'll notice here we have one marked inactive, and that's Bear Pond Books. And that one's showing as inactive. You'll now notice that there is an option here that says show active vendors only. So now as I scroll through this list, you'll notice that that one has been removed. This is just a really nice enhancement. You know, I can remember when I worked at the law library, a lot of times the smaller mom and pop shops would get purchased or bought out by another larger vendor. And, you know, this is a nice way where if you mark a vendor inactive, you can still retain their information. However, when you're looking at the search results of your vendors, you can only see the active ones. And I'll just show you very quickly how you can mark a vendor inactive in the system. Once you select the vendor you want to make inactive, this of course takes you into the vendor details. Simply by selecting Edit Vendor, this will take you into the vendor's information where you can scroll down, and under the ordering information, you have an option to select inactive, and that would make your vendor inactive in the system. That way you can retain all of their information. It would just show them as inactive in the system. Okay, let's move on to another one of some of our exciting changes here in the acquisitions module. The next one is you can now see the information for your serial subscriptions info on a vendor profile page. And what this will do is this will allow you to go in and take a look at one of your vendors. So I'm going to go back in. We're going to come to that list. And Jenny, perfect timing. I see you asked a question. Will Koha remember to display only active vendors each session, or do you have to set it each time? Every time you do a new search, you will have to reset show active vendors only. By default, it will show both active and inactive vendors. So what we'll do is now we're going to take a look at this new enhancement, which will show our serial subscription information in the vendor account. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at one of our vendors. I'm going to just click on Ingram here. And what you'll notice is now in the vendor detail information, you'll be able to see subscription details. So right over here on the right-hand side, this will show you any serial subscription that is connected to a vendor. So here you can see the number of subscriptions is 2. So again, it's not a link that's going to take me out to those 2 currently. Hopefully we will see that down the road. But it does just show us the number of subscriptions that are connected to this particular vendor. And for those of you who may not be using that serials service or option, I will just show you very quickly how that works. When you're setting up a serial in the system, I can come over and I'm just going to pull a serial up in the system. So we have our Fine Gardening magazine. When we are creating this particular record, you have your subscription where you can come in and if one's already created, you'll notice that the first option that we have is the availability to connect it to a vendor. So if you do track your vendors in the system, you can come in and connect them to a serial subscription. This allows you to either search for the vendor that's already in the system. So let's say I was going to search for one, I can do a quick search for Zaro. That will show me any results, and then I can come over here and choose that. Now I'll be able to see any vendor again that's connected in the vendor details of that information. So just a nice enhancement there. Okay, so now we're going to jump right back over to our acquisitions module and continue with some of the availability that we have. This next enhancement will be a great addition for some of our libraries that track donations, for an example, through the acquisitions module. This new enhancement allows you to see any type of fund that may have a 0 balance when you're creating a new order in the system. So right here on our front page, you'll notice that we have a budget set up, and we have one here that has a 0 fund line. And I know just from going out and training and talking with a few of you that a lot of times you do like to track donations, and sometimes those are a 0 addition in here. And what this allows you to do is when you're creating those new orders, you'll now be able to see that fund in the dropdown. Prior to this release, you would not be able to see that. We could go in and we could still create the fund at 0, but we'd have to make it, let's say, 1 cent or $1 in order for that information to populate in the drop-down menu. So let's go in and take a look at what this looks like now. So I'm going to come in here and we're just going to jump into a basket. So I'm going to come down here to my Zaro bookseller and just open one of our baskets that we have here. And we'll come in here and we'll add to our basket, and let's just grab from a new and empty record so far. So what I'm going to do is we'll come in here and we'll create a new record. Okay, now down at the bottom, once we add our item in, depending on your system preference if you're adding an item or not, where you'll notice this new enhancement will be, of course, in the accounting details. When we come down to select a fund, now you'll notice that we can actually see children's magazines. Even though it has a 0 fund line, we can now select that. Again, this will be fantastic for those of you who do track donations. So now I can come through, I have my quantity selected, and then I have, again, nothing populated. So now that this enhancement is here, you'll now notice any fund that has a 0 balance will be visible in your drop-down menu. Now, this actually leads us in to our next enhancement. This enhancement allows us to view basket information that includes uncertain prices. So, for those of you who use the uncertain price feature, you'll notice this appears right underneath our vendor price. Here you can see it, uncertain price. If I select that checkbox and then I come down here and I save that order in the system, that's basically telling Koha, I'm really not sure what that price is. I need to come back and add that particular price. Now, the one caveat to using the uncertain price feature is a basket cannot be closed until the price is updated. It is a great way to kind of say, you know what, I'm not sure what it is right now. I can come back to it. But just remember that a basket, again, cannot be closed until the uncertain price is filled. With this enhancement, you'll now notice that we have a button that appears right up top that has the uncertain prices. It's right in between our delete basket and export this basket to a CSV. So this will allow us to essentially go in and view our uncertain prices. So again, for those of you who are using that, you will be able to see now those uncertain prices directly within the system. Okay, so we have one more that ties into our acquisitions information, and that is an enhancement that ties in again to our budgets and our orders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the acquisitions main screen, and we'll talk a little bit about our budget here. So on our main screen, we'll be able to see any budgets that are currently open. It will give me a link that takes me to my fund code. So of course, if I clicked on H-Fiction BK, that will take me out to a breakdown of my budget. Now, I can also, from this main screen, click on anything that has an ordered or spent value, and I can view that information. So if I click on one of these options, so for my example over here, I'm going to click on fiction. And if I click on ordered, this will actually take me into my ordered screen. Prior to this release, the title was not a clickable link. Now within this new release, you can actually click on the title and it will take you out again to that particular title where you can view that record. Just a tiny enhancement, but this is actually really nice because now we can just link right out to our order titles right from this page. For any of you who were on that first 1 hour upgrade webinar, I mentioned that the 1705 release had a lot of great enhancements where it was all about like our staff and the user experience. You'll notice that it makes it a lot easier for us to navigate throughout the system. You'll notice that there's a lot more sidebars or navigation menus that have been uniformed throughout Koha. So again, this is just another nice enhancement where now when we click on one of those, ordered or spent budget funds, we can actually click on the title. So instead of it being a static where we would not be able to link out, we now have that option. Okay, now just as we've been talking about those great user enhancements, we'll talk about the last one that actually ties in to our acquisitions module, and that is going to be the sidebar menu in our suggestions. So for those of you who use purchase suggestions, it's a great feature that allows our users to either make purchase suggestions from the OPAC if they are logged into the system. You can also use the system preference that allows them to make anonymous purchase suggestions. And then, of course, staff can always do it from the staff client side, where they can pull up a patron's account and they can create a suggestion to that individual's account. Well, what this enhancement does is it actually adds a sidebar menu to the suggestions page. I know this sounds simple, but prior to this release, you wouldn't be able to see this information. So there was no easy way to kind of link back and forth between the acquisitions module. You'd either have to come up to the more drop-down menu and then select acquisitions, or go back to the main screen. So now with this enhancement, this takes you right into the acquisitions module, so you don't have to jump back and forth. The user can simply come over here on the left-hand side, select acquisitions home, and then again, take me right into the acquisitions module, and then again, back and forth from suggestions. So again, just a great user experience enhancement that was added in, so our staff can easily move back and forth between the modules. If you've attended, again, another couple of our webinars, you'll notice that you'll see that same uniform sidebar in the circulation module. So I just like to always give a nice shout out to the community. They worked really hard in 1705 to make the experience for our staff and our users seamless to move back and forth. All right, so now that we've talked about acquisitions, let's move into our cataloging module. So not a lot of enhancements here in cataloging, but one that's really nice. For those of you who are using the serials module, this ties in. There's a new standardization for serials volume information for how it displays in the OPAC and the staff client. So let's start by bringing up an example. So I'm going to just pull up Newsweek, which is one of our serials in the system. And we're going to jump right into that record. On the staff side of Newsweek, our staff members would be able to see our serial enumeration and chronology, of course. And in that column, we would see the volume and number, or volume number issue, or seasonal, whatever it may be. In the I believe it was 1611 release, we also had the addition of the date. So now we'll also be able to see that date. However, in the last release, they did it on the staff side, but it was not standardized on the OPAC. So now if we take a look at the OPAC view, you'll notice that our patrons, our customers, our students will actually see the same information now on the OPAC. So on our holdings table, of course, here we have Newsweek. Down below, you'll now be able to see that same standardization. So where we have it on the staff client as volume 43, number 1, 11/1/2017, and here you can see another example down below, volume 42, number 53, with the date. That same standardization is on the staff client. So again, in addition to a lot of that user experience, you'll notice a lot of standardization across the board. So it will look the same on the staff client as it will on the OPAC. Okay, so let's continue right along with some cataloging. And the next one will tie into modifications. Our new enhancement is in the item search feature. Within the item search feature, you can now extract barcode files directly from the item search menu. This is huge. How many people do batch item modifications, maybe to move a location, or batch item deletions? Of course, if you want to go in and, you're weeding some things out, cleaning them up, right? We have to currently go into the reports module, run a report, and grab those barcodes. Well, guess what? Now we can actually use the item search feature. So I can come in here and let's say, for example, I want to pull out shelving location. Let's go with Vermont books. When I scroll down to the bottom, you'll notice that now my output, I have screen, CSV, and barcode file. So if I select barcodes file and then search, this will prompt and download a TXT file. So how fantastic is that? Because I can take that TXT file and either, grab a copy of them, or I can come over to my tools and come right into my batch item modification, and I can choose that file that I've just exported and then come in and make those modifications. So now I'm skipping a step. I don't even have to go to reports, either create a report or run a report that's in there. I can come in and do these right away. So again, this is just a quick way to do it. And Jenny, I love this too. You asked, can this be done from call numbers from the item record? So for example, if I came in here and I selected, let's say I have to think of a good example that we might have in here. So let's say 365 to 368, and I do an export. Now, of course, I didn't have any in that one. But if I had one in between those call numbers, you could absolutely go in there and pull those through. This is just a fabulous way to do it rather than having to go in and run that report. So just a nice feature. This actually ties us into another enhancement, one where you can use multiple barcodes. I know for at least the last 2 years that I've been here, I've had this question come up quite often. So this ties into our lists module. So for those of you who create public lists for your patrons on the OPAC, or of course private lists, this new feature allows you to come in and add multiple barcodes at once to a list. So I'm going to go with those same Vermont ones that I used. So I'm going to come in and we're going to add, Vermont books to our list. And I'm going to make this a public list, and I'm going to actually allow everyone to go in there and add entries. So I'm going to come over here and save that title. So now, I already have one in there, Vermont books. Let's call this Vermont travel books. How about that? We're going to come in here and we're going to add those in. And you'll notice over here on the left-hand side, it used to be much more of a smaller barcodes option where I could scan one barcode at a time. What this allows me to do is I can actually add multiple barcodes. So what I can do is I can come in here, I'm going to grab those barcodes that I've just extracted. So I'm just going to grab a couple of these in the system, and we'll come over here and I can paste those right in. So I've grabbed about 10 of those barcodes. So now I can select add and add all 10 of those at once. So instead of scanning one by one, now we can do them in batch. Can we get some excitement there, right? Woo!
People are excited, Jessie. They're in the chat. They're so excited.
This one, when I saw this one, I was like super excited. I emailed people that had already asked questions about it.
This is going to be a time saver for so many people, Jessie.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Jessie, we have a question about LC call numbers in that call number search. If they are in Library of Congress, that would still work, correct?
Yep, they would still be able to do the item search. Oh, Candace, hey. So when you come into that item search field, if Absolutely. If you use Library of Congress, of course, you would be able to come in here and use the same format that would be in your item call number information, and then you could do between both of those. Absolutely. Okay, excellent. So this takes us into another module. So we've talked about our acquisitions, we've talked about some cataloging, some serials, some of our search features and lists. Now let's talk a little bit about notices. So in technical services, usually we have two main notices that you can use, and that's going to be your acquisitions claim if you're making a claim for a late order, and then we also have your serials claim, which allows you to make a claim for any issues that have not been received. This new enhancement is the availability to translate notices. Now, of course, this goes across the board for all notices. So, you know, item due reminders, advance due reminders, overdue bills, and things like that. But in this webinar, since we're talking about technical services, I will show you how to update your acquisitions claim or your serials claim if you want to send out a notice in a different language. So the first thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that in your Koha administration and in your global system preference, we have a new system preference called Translate Notices. Translate Notices allows your notices, of course, to be translated. If set to allow, you'll notice that we'll have some different options now in our notices, which I'll show you here in just a minute. Now, the other thing that's imperative to making this work is ensuring that you have any additional language packs installed on your Koha system. So, of course, that's going to be here in our I-18N, L10N system preference, but if you just do a search for language, that will bring it up too. And on our training system here, we have a Spanish pack installed. If you would like us at Bywater to install any language packs for you, there are tons, ranging from, of course, Spanish, French, Chinese, whatever it may be, we can install those on the system for you. Once they are installed, they'll populate into your language preference. So here you can see I have both English and Spanish set up. Now, another enhancement that really ties into this ability to translate notice is you can also select what language your patrons will receive notices in. So that may not tie into our acquisitions claim or serials claim, but for those of you who do cross-reference work for both, let's say, technical services, and then maybe you spend some time out on the circ desk or reference desk, you can actually do that, and I'll show you both. So once you have all of your system preferences set and your language pack installed, let's go over to our tools module. In our tools module, under our patrons and circulation, we have our notices and slips. And in our notices and slips, this will take us in where we can take a look at some of our options. So for our tech services today, we're going to focus on acquisitions claims and our serials claim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select edit. And this is going to take us into our acquisitions claim where we can modify the notice. Now, what you will notice here is that over on the left-hand side, we have the default, and that's what everyone's used to seeing. Now that we have the language pack set up, we'll also have a tab for English and Espanol. So we'll start with, of course, the default, and that looks just like our basic notice that went out. Again, I have English. I have selected exactly what my English language will go out, and now I also have Spanish. So you'll notice you can translate the message subject as well as the message body. I have used Google Translate to translate these. Koha will not translate it for you. You'll have to use an outside source. For those of you who may have a Spanish speaking or French or Chinese, whatever it may be, staff member that can translate them for you. Of course, you can start there, or, if you have another translation site besides Google that works, absolutely you can use that. I will say the only thing you do not have to translate, of course, is anything that is contained in the message body. So you'll notice it still says acbooksellers.name, of course, because that is pulling from the Koha schema. So you don't have to worry about translating that. Again, this is just going to be the body. So once you've added in the translation, of course, we'll come down to the bottom and hit submit. The same thing goes for your serials claims. Just out of curiosity, how many people are using the serials claim within the library? No one? Okay, well, for those of you who may want to start using the serials claim, we do have a blog post that will I can share with you in the system. I'll send it here in the chat box, and that walks you through setting up the serials claims. But again, if I come over here to edit that information, then you can come over here and see that you can set that information up here in your serial information. Now, one thing that I will suggest, if you do have a multi-branch system, you'll want to make sure that if it's set for all libraries, of course, you'll want to do that. But for your libraries that do have their own notices, again, for multi-branch systems, you can see down at the bottom, like we have our main branch, our north branch, our south branch. You will have to go in and also update those, of course, copy and paste. So you'll want to make sure that not only are your all libraries updated, but also your branch-specific ones. If there is no information in the Spanish or whatever it may be, Spanish, French, Chinese, whatever it may be, it will fall back to the default, whatever is in that default message. And we have George, we have a question from...
I think you just answered it, Jessie, but just
double. Okay. Okay.
About the multiple notices with different branches
installed in their patrons set
they didn't have. Yep.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Yep. George, so what I would say is, just send out a gentle reminder and tell them to, if they do have branch specific ones, definitely fill them out. If not, it will just default back to default. So yeah, for sure. And the other thing I always like to talk about with this is, I'd like to show you what it looks like also in the account information. So here, when you're either setting up a new patron in the system or you're editing a patron, you'll notice if you use this particular system preference under library management, you'll have the preferred language for notices. And again, it will be default by default. Okay, so we made it through our technical services upgrade right at 2:48. So we have some time for questions, if you have any questions. Oh, George, absolutely. Can they, so George is asking, let's see if we still have one open here in the OPAC. Yes, we do. So let's log in real quick here. So it doesn't look like there is an option for them to come in and set up their preferred language in the OPAC on the staff side, but that is probably something that would be a good enhancement to ask for now that we have it on the staff side is to get it on the OPAC. So
is it on messaging preferences, your messaging? Could it be there instead of Jesse?
let's double check.
Nope, I guess not.
Not yet.
Nope.
Just our SMS information.
Yep.
That's a good one, George. Actually, we can submit that one to the community because I think that would be a good option to allow the users to do that on the OPAC. Any other questions? Yeah, me too. I think so too, George. Well, as we're waiting for the questions to come in, for those of you who do celebrate Halloween, happy Halloween. We did have a tweet that came at Bywater Solutions that asked if this was going to be a spooky and scary upgrade webinar today because our tech services was on Halloween. And since we just had some fanning there, I would like to say, is anyone dressing up tonight and going out for Halloween with your children, or just going out or dressed up at work?
Jesse, I know you're dressed up at home.
I know. I'm excited. Oh yes, look at, I love it. Yes, dressed up. Oh, so excited. You'll have to share pictures with us if you would be willing. I love it. Awesome. I love hearing that. You'll have to share pictures with us. Oh, a lemon. Awesome. Oh, Heather, we'll be looking for it. An identity theft. Cool. These all sound so awesome. Larry, our systems administrator, we just had our operations meeting a little bit before this webinar, and he had a scary mask on.
I thought it was a hat. It wasn't so scary. Whoops.
Oh, nice, Rhonda.
Second generation.
Nice. Oh, Mary Beth, we're going to have to add you. Wonderful. Well, wonderful. Well, I would just like to first thank everyone for attending our upgrade webinar today for technical services. This will be recorded and we'll put it up on our website. And if there are any other questions that come up, please just let us know. We'll have 2 more sessions after this, both for OPAC and Circin patrons. I also want to give a big thanks to Kelly for monitoring the chat for us, for all those great questions that came in. And again, if anything else comes up or you have any ideas, please feel free to reach out to us.
It was my pleasure, Jesse.
Thank you. Happy Halloween for all of those that you are that are celebrating, and to everyone else, have a wonderful night. Thanks again. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Hopefully it's warm for everybody.
Yeah.
Not raining.
Okay, thanks.